The Sadness is a Taiwanese body horror film written, edited, and directed by Canadian filmmaker Rob Jabbat. It was originally released to theaters in Taiwan on January 22nd, 2021, and began streaming on Shudder in May 2022. Could this be the most disturbing and intense zombie film? Let's find out. Welcome back, I'm Sippin, and recently I reviewed When Evil Lurks, and that put me on a quest to find the most shocking, scary, and disturbing horror movie I can find. And let me specify, I mean a real movie, not one of those highly banned, highly illegal movies, as I will not give any attention to those. Viewer discretion is advised, as this movie does get a little wild. And as usual, before we dive on in, spoiler warning for The Sadness, so just warning you now. Lastly, apparently this movie is based on the Cross comic book series, so there's that, and with that out of the way, let's discuss the cruelty that is The Sadness. We open up to a couple waking up in their bed. Kat gets out of bed and prepares for work while Jim watches a news video discussing the outbreak of the Alvin virus. One side of the spectrum believes it to be nothing more than a flu, while the other side explains the possibility of it mutating into a similar branch of rabies, becoming a full-blown pandemic. Later, I'll discuss the meaning of the film, but I'm sure you're already picking up on some of the parallels. Jim sees a lady staying on our roof, and she isn't looking too good. Could she be patient zero? Just before they leave, Jim talks to their neighbor, Mr. Lin, who is a gardener. I mention this here because we will be circling back to that. As Jim drops Kat off at the train station, we see the beginning of the outbreak. The couple separates with Kat going to work and Jim going to a restaurant. The rest of the film centers on the couple trying to reconnect. So we follow Jim into the restaurant where he waits for his order, but just then the lady he saw on the rooftop is here. And brother, they are not patient. Instead of ordering and waiting for some food, they grab a french fry scoop that is currently hot grease, frying fries, and dumps it on the cook and proceeds to, pull at him. This person has pretty much infected the whole restaurant, causing mayhem. Jim backs out, understandably shaken, and patient zero follows, until a car decides to turn them into hotcakes from IHOP. Jim apparently decided to throw a party at his apartment because everyone chased him home, but at the last minute he forgot that he has homework, so he shut them out. Jim grabs his phone off the charger to contact Kate and Warner, but that's when we notice something. We see something lurking. Do you remember me mentioning how I was going to circle back? Mr. Lin, who earlier was shown to be getting sick, has now become fully infected and is sneaking up on our boy Jim. Circling back to the circle, Mr. Lin was a gardener, so he's coming at Jim with some shears. But don't worry, Jim notices and catches the shears before they could do any damage. He does manage to escape, and he uses some cloth to cover his wound. Alright, so we have seen Jimbo for a minute, so the movie shifts to focus on Kat. She's currently being harassed by a creep on the train when two infected people begin stabbing others over and over, causing more people to become infected, including the creepy businessman who is harassing Kat. Eventually, the train arrives to its destination, allowing Kat to escape with a lady named Molly. But not before the businessman was able to force her vision from a 20/20 to a 10/20, if you know what I'm saying. They flee from the man wielding his umbrella, and so they stumble into quite possibly my favorite shot of the film. Molly, who's lost an eye, and not a foot, mind you, keeps falling, and one of these times happens in a long subway tunnel near the exit. The businessman walks around the corner. He stands there, lurking. Kat and Molly finally begin getting to their feet, and then, there he goes, dashing ahead, sprinting after them. As they run towards the exit, a man sees them approaching and begins shutting the security garage door. It's looking close, but both ladies manage to make it out. This scene was spoiled in the trailer, but the cinematography and the acting just elevated up high enough to get my nerves going a bit. I figured Kat would make it out, but I was surprised seeing Molly also escaping. So this scene was pretty sick for me. Afterwards, they, along with the subway worker, head to the hospital. When they get there, we see tons of people affected from the infected. They all gather around a TV in order to watch an emergency broadcast from the president and a general. During this, Kat gets the phone from the subway guy to hit up Jim and give him her location. Going back to this TV broadcast, the general gives his speech, and then we see that he is in fact infected. He shoves a grenade in the president's mouth. And well, all I'm gonna say is, imagination is one hell of a thing. Chaos ensued. During this, more chaos ensues, if you can believe it. The businessman, along with other infected, has arrived and smashed through the window, taking out everyone in the area, except for Kat, who escaped into the stairwell, the subway worker who hid, and Molly, who was receiving medical attention to her eye. But sadly for one of them, their safety will soon be gone. The businessman is walking down the hallway looking for Kat, but he comes across someone in a wheelchair. He found Molly after her patch up. Viewer discretion is advised, as this scene is probably the most disturbing scene of the film. We see the businessman remove her eye patch and undo his pants. He then infects her. We cut back to Jim, who is also seeing some disturbing scenes and going through it. As he talks to Kat on the phone, he begins hallucinating that a mannequin head is a real one. Could this mean something? As for the disturbing sights he sees, I'll describe two of them because, one, there's a lot of them, and two, I don't want to spoil everything in the movie. But one of them involves 4 teens beating up a man and slamming him up against a pole. Johnson first. Jim attempts to aid the guy, but he learns the guy is infected and is actually enjoying it. And the other involves a group of people holding a man down on a staircase. They have one of his arms outstretched next to him. And you might know where this is going. The guy not holding him down stands up and stomps on his arm, breaking it. Pretty badly, mind you. If you haven't noticed by now, these ain't normal zombies, as the movie even confirms later on. The infected are acting on their deepest and ugliest desires they can imagine, whether they want to or not. Take the creepy businessman as an example. At the start, he was a creep hitting on Kat, and now his primary purpose is to take advantage of her. Another example of the inner and dark desires playing a role is when we follow the subway worker for a bit. He leaves his hiding spot and sees a whole team of infected going to absolute town on each other, if you pick up what I'm putting down. He then stumbles upon an infected Molly, who then charges him, forcing him into the pile of infected people, who then end dude. Not too far away is Kat running away from 2 infected people, and soon to join is the businessman. Also, I know I keep just calling him the businessman, but that's literally his name because he was never given a name, even according to IMDb. So yeah, he's just named the businessman. But anyways, Kat makes it to the maternity ward and locks the door by bending a bar, which does work for a brief moment until said businessman joins in. He uses his axe he acquired a while ago to pry open enough room for him to get in. It's the final showdown. But Kat has had enough of this guy. She takes him to the ground using a fire extinguisher and then uses his head to create ground beef. Just then, a door slides open and a guy in a hazmat suit helps her into safety. Or did they? As she turns to greet this person, she realizes they have a gun aimed at her. A 3D printed pistol.
You have a gun? Hell yeah. 3D printer, baby. 100% polyurethane.
He forces her to handcuff herself to a shower rod. She then has to change clothes and take a shower to clean any nasty stuff off of her. Turns out he's some sort of researcher named Dr. Wong, and he is looking for a cure. Maybe he's not evil. Well, damn. We learned he infected every baby in the hospital with the virus in order to search for someone immune. But none of them were, so he eliminated all of them except for one. As Kat is piecing everything together, he ambushes her and injects her. He then keeps her handcuffed to that pipe to monitor and see if she could possibly be immune. Wong explains to Kat that he attempted to find the cure for the Alvin virus, which in its mutated form connects the parts of the brain that govern sex and aggression. Hence the group of people enjoying themselves in the hospital and the guy Jim found. And for aggression, well, that one is a little more obvious. Wong also theorizes that the reason the infected cry is because they are fully aware of the terrible things they do, but are completely unable to stop. Just thinking about that makes this zombie movie more bleak and disturbing. Normally zombies aren't aware of what's going on, but here, whether you want to or not, you are forced by the virus to commit heinous acts against anyone, no matter who they are. To me, it's a fate worse than death, because not only do you have no control of your actions, but you are also hurting others. After some time, Wong checks in on Kat and discovers that she is in fact immune. He informs her that there's a helicopter arriving to the roof of the hospital shortly, so he uncuffs her as they proceed to leave the safety of the maternity ward. As they begin to walk, Kat immediately notices something's off, but it's too late. As Dr. Wong rounds the corner, an axe swings down and takes off the whole front half of his foot. He takes out the attackers and forces Kat to carry him. Then, at the end of the hallway, the doors smash open. Kat has come face to face with Jim. They found each other. Earlier though, I did mention how Jim was hallucinating. Well, that's because he has become infected. He rushes at Dr. Wong, and after a short struggle, he eliminates the doctor. Kat realizes that Jim is infected and locks him outside the stairwell to the roof, separating the two. Jim tells her that being infected feels wonderful and that he can think of no more loving act than to mutilate and kill her. Kat begins laughing hysterically. probably due to everything she has experienced up to this part, including the loss of her significant other. She flees up the stairs and through a door leading to the roof. Shortly after she exits, the sound of gunfire becomes audible. Sitting against the stairwell gate, the film ends with Jim smiling. The sadness is just that, sadness. The infected zombies are aware of the horrendous acts they are committing, and in reaction are crying. They are crying knowing they are hurting others and that they cannot control their decisions. It shows how pandemics or changes to society can amplify those dark desires in people. Just like in When Evil Lurks, The Sadness is a very bleak movie with an ending sure to leave you shocked. Personally, for me, I would have to give it an 8.7 out of 10. And in terms of it being disturbing, I give it an 8 out of 10. While certain scenes in When Evil Lurks were more disturbing, they were few and far between, whereas The Sadness is filled with different sorts of disturbing, the scene with Molly perhaps being the biggest culprit. Whether you find gore and violence disturbing or not, this movie is sure to have your eyes wide. Did you see the movie? What are your thoughts? Do you have a disturbing horror movie you want me to check out? Drop it all in the comments. I appreciate you and your time. Stay chill, and I will see you next time.
'Cause let's face it, baby, these days, you gotta have a sequel.